So good afternoon. My name is Daniel. I'd like to introduce our UF, City Lab team. It's comprised of Simone, Tanner, Candela, Stephanie, Eric, Alejandro, Nathan, and Greg. We want to thank you for the opportunity to work in this neighborhood. The process of examining Jacksonville has been enlightening, enriching. In our extensive analysis, we've been able to construct a proposal to revitalize the Cathedral District, and it utilizes the existing Torty Galley planning proposal, and we're going to build upon that. So you can see from this image, or on our board, we've kind of created a couple of images that kind of that will show our project, and we're using redefine, reconnect, revitalize, and it's going to be obviously in the Cathedral District. The Cathedral District was the origin of Jacksonville, yet today the district is disconnected historically, culturally, developmentally, infrastructurally, and economically from the rest of the city. And our proposal is to fix this, to revitalize and introduce connections to the Cathedral District to the rest of the city. We referred to two foundational works. So that's where we started. It's with The Image of the City by Kevin Lynch and The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs. Even though it's difficult to narrow down these great works into just a few sentences, there are a few key takeaways we wanted to speak about. Lynch created a framework to analyze the city in pieces with the 5 elements. So these are nodes, paths, landmarks, edges, and districts. And these help to create a legible fabric for the city. And then Jane Jacobs showed us that there was importance to certain idealistics in the planning sense. And this was through a plethora of urban planning techniques, such as understanding the connection to its history through demographic diversity, and a few key points of the city that Jane Jacobs finds to be crucial are parks, short blocks, walkable streets, and engaging sidewalks. And this is all done in the sake of walkability. And lastly, we looked at critical theory, and this was a group from the Frankfurt School. They called themselves collectively critical theory in the 1920s. And they are a philosophical and sociological movement that spread across many universities across the world. It predominantly was associated with the denouncement of capitalism that focuses solely on financial gain. So our site, as most American cities they do rely on capitalism, but we wanted to focus on the social implications and the connection of people within our site to the greater realm of Jacksonville, brought upon by critical theory. So the issues are what we had spoke about, is the issue of not having people that activate the site. So our solution to that is understanding how some of these characteristics by Jane Jacobs and Kevin Lynch, such as the short blocks, distinctive landmarks, and then our church, obviously those landmarks are our churches, as the beginnings of intertwined vegetation and green spaces. We feel that these really crucial moments are great for the city and its growth. And what's noticeably lacking, like I said, is population, building type, public space, and places of destination other than the churches. And we're trying to find a way, and we believe we have found a way to keep visitors in the site for prolonged periods, to make them activate the site as needed. And based off of these ideals, we use the idea of memory to revitalize Jacksonville's DNA, through its origins, historically and socially, to provide an urban environment. And this celebrates connectivity and to fix the above issues, while strengthening the previously announced positive characteristics. So our proposal is to fix and, revitalize and reintroduce connections to the Cathedral District to the rest of the city. Do you think it's best if I just keep sharing, or do you want to share?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Okay, so tying in with what Daniel was saying with Brenner, we realized that it was really important to begin to analyze the historical urban fabric to see if it could give us the answers we were looking for. And so, based off of this research, we found out that the Cathedral District had originally been called Cowes Ford, and this was taken over by British colonists. The reason why it's called Cowes Ford is because the King's Road, which was essentially the first highway of Florida, terminated at where Hogan's Creek is today. And it was an area where cows were able to sort of cross the land to the other side. Keeping this idea in mind, the British realized quickly that because of its location adjacent to the St. Johns River, that it would be a great opportunity for settlement, given that the main way for transporting to and from this site was by boat. And this was the case during this time throughout many areas. So because of this, we analyzed the Sanborn maps from May 1887 to 1901. And what this unveiled was that the city began to see exponential growth. This becomes evident if you look at the Sanborn maps of this growth as the blocks continue to grow and grow. And, this connection was able to happen because of the St. Johns River. It played such a crucial role. So this being said, for validity reasons, the Sanborn maps are highly accurate. This being because they were used for fire insurance purposes. So we know for a fact that this whatever was on this parcel of land was accurate and real. So continuing on analyzing the site, we made our own. We ended up piecing together multiple Sanborn maps of the area to truly unveil what was there. And it became evident that if you could go to the far left corner, yeah. It became evident that Jacksonville at this time was a booming industrial area, given with boat being the main method of transportation. People liked the idea of living next to the water, and it was a convenience thing, but also something that's enjoyable. And as we scroll to the right, we see that people begin to take photos of the area, and looking at this image of Adam Street, it was a city that was a pleasure to live in, up until the point where the fire of 1901 happened, the Great Fire, which actually the origin was Market Street. This fire essentially decimated the entire area. It grounded it. And up until this point, Jacksonville had really found its way to connect itself with the city and the river. And because of this fire, it gave so much damage to the area that it led people to think that, well, should we actually put in the effort to revitalize this area, or should we move development to the west and sort of start anew? And what we see in present day Jacksonville is this exactly: the fact that the business district of Jacksonville has shifted west, and the Cathedral District has been led to a disconnection to what is currently the business district. And so that's what I've got.
Great, Daniel. Can you let me share that part? So moving on to the current and future conditions of Jacksonville's natural environment and infrastructure. It's first, the downtown Jacksonville is a historic core and central business district of the area. Comprised of the earliest area in the city is the geographic center along St. Johns River. The St. Johns River is the longest river in the state of Florida, and its most significant use is commercial and recreational. It's not until the river hits the Jacksonville area that the water becomes brackish. It is a black water stream, meaning that it's salty water combined with fresh water, provoked by the size of the ocean pushing seawater into the mouth of the river, creating an estuary ecosystem in the area. Jacksonville has long faced a problem with water pollution and flood controls, especially the north side area. In 2017, for example, with Hurricane Irma, the coastal city of Jacksonville was being swallowed by water with heavy rains and record storm surge, turning streets into churning rivers and wind-wiped waves crashing through the windows. Nowadays, the main terrestrial connection is the I-95, and it's the main interstate highway of Florida's Atlantic coast. Jacksonville, as of today, has a size of 875 square miles and a total population slightly above 900,000, where 75% are white, 25% are Black, and 2% are other groups. The major industries include shipping, food processing, banking, and insurance, where the average income of a Jacksonville resident is slightly below the U.S. average. Jacksonville history, arts, and culture community shines bright with standout museums, boutiques, galleries, and performing arts galore, where you can experience a unique blend of festivals, live music, arts, and exhibitions. Here we can see an aerial view from the river and Jacksonville urban fabric distribution. Moving to the Cathedral District, it is a 36-block area around St. John's Cathedral in downtown Jacksonville. The district extends north to south from State Street to Adams Street and east to west from Main Street to North Liberty Street, and it embraces 5 historic houses of worship. According to a 2007 MetroJack article, the Cathedral District may be the urban's core most overlooked and forgotten pedestrian-friendly neighborhood. Due to several years of neglect and the destruction of building fabric for surface parking lots, outside of parking for Jaguars games, there is not much reason to walk in foot. Despite this, we remains our greatest streets, a centralized location, significant unique architecture, and available land to convert this area into one of Jacksonville's premier urban addresses. The area is currently dotted with vacant properties and surface parking lots, beset by homelessness and perceived by many as unsafe. But fortunately, a determined group of stakeholders, including businesses, churches, nonprofit organizations, and residents and other downtown advocates, are prepared to work hard and stay in for the long haul. Also, due to its location, surrounded by major highways, the Cathedral District is currently characterized as a place to move through and not a destination itself. Some of the ongoing projects are, for example, the Huggins Creek. Bordering the north of the east region of the district, Huggins Creek acts as a boundary line separating the Cathedral District from the urban core, and the north, and the North Sporting District to the east. Members of the community state that the creek suffered from years of pollution and neglect. But fortunately, there are current proposals in the work for revitalization of the creek, improving the water quality and habitat to make it accessible once again for fishing, kayaking, recreation, which will promote economic growth. The Fort on the Bay is a mixed-use project by the river, planned to be started by the end of this year. The Downtown Investment Authority recently approved a project to build a mixed-use retail and multifamily development at Fort on the Bay. The developer proposed a two-phase project with 520 apartments and up to 74,000 square feet of retail space along the Innovation Corridor and across Entertainment District. Regarding transportation, Jacksonville has a current elevated train called the Skyway Line, connecting some important nodes around the city. Unfortunately, there are several projects for expanding this network in the hopes of reconnecting isolated neighborhoods and new development areas. And another project to mention is the Ultimate Urban Circulation that proposes connections in every direction with special interest in the East Corridor, which extends the lines along Bay Street to the Sport Complex. Bay Street's Innovation Corridor proposes incorporating smart city technologies along the urban core and Sport Complex, such as autonomous shuttles and street notification system. Moving to the Torrey Gallows project, it is a proposed revitalization strategy for the Cathedral District, which we use as reference for our extended proposal. The framework of the physical master plan is organized around the following ideas: to create a residential core, to make improved connections to surrounding neighborhoods and existing surroundings, create a mixed-use neighborhood serving retail street, create a safe and friendly walkable, bikeable streets, add open space where parks should be differentiated in design and programmed to attract range of users, create religious public art program, and develop a parking strategy, redevelopment of parking lots in ways that support the churches. So with this analysis, we concluded that the Cathedral District has several parking lots and empty buildings, which represent several opportunities for us, such as buildings for readapt and reuse, or existing parking lots with new residential units on top could be a good solution. Finally, the current conditions and extended maps. After analyzing ongoing projects right at the edge of the Cathedral District, as well as many natural and infrastructure potentials, we decided to expand the intervention area. These maps represent the relationship between occupied land and open spaces, as well as existing land use. So we decided to extend the intervention site considering natural and man-made barriers such as the St. John's River, Huggins Creek at the east and north, and the Skyway rails at the west. So now Tanner will proceed to explain our proposed master plan.
All right, I'll share my screen. All right. Sorry if you hear background music. I'm currently stealing hotel lobby Wi-Fi. With all of that being said, there's quite a bit of information we had to synthesize to create our proposal. The most pressing issue that showed itself was that after the fire, the Cathedral District was left to its own devices. It was rebuilt to an extent, but it was left in the wake of disconnection. Our proposal aims to reconnect these severed ties by using its history to inform the future, while also injecting some new urbanist ideas to create an engaging district, celebrating the St. John's River, the King's Road, and a newly revived diversity to come. So our proposal includes redefining the Cathedral District boundaries, identifying and implementing reconnections physically and historically with the larger context of the district and the city, and then finally physically and intangibly reconnecting and revitalizing the district within itself. So the district is actually much larger than when experienced firsthand, and after our extensive research, the current boundary seems fairly arbitrary in our modern context. By looking at the natural and man-made physical boundaries, we were able to identify and encapsulate a cathedral district that strives to be far more diverse. The Skyrail to the west currently acts as an unintentional barrier to the cathedral district, along with the opaque architecture adjacent. Confederate Park to the north marks the boundary between the cathedral district and a more suburban sprawl. The east edge is defined by Hogan's Creek, and the change of surface streets to bridges, as you can see there. And finally, but most appropriately, the St. John's River supports the southern edge as it has the Cathedral District during its golden age. These newly defined boundaries and newly acquired historical knowledge were kind of the epiphanies that drove our proposal, along with the background of the Torrey Dallas research. So physical and historical connections with the larger context of the city was our second task. Similarly to the Torrey Dallas work, we identified these major axes as great opportunities to reach outward beyond the district while revitalizing within. And we also proposed a revival of the King's Road. Just bring everything up there. Via a few means that we'll tackle in a bit, though its major advantage is that its re-implementation into several redevelopment ventures will remind the Cathedral District and Jacksonville as a whole of their roots, while also superimposing a grid break that will be used as implied, less physical connection to the new developments. To bolster these major access connections, we have strategically allocated zoning and individual project redevelopments along these edges to provide exciting gateways to the district. The addition and redevelopment of nodal parks to the east and the west create a breath of fresh air as one would enter the district on foot or by car. Existing Skyrail stops and newly positioned ones down here at the south would bring people from farther away. Redeveloping the underside of the sky rails, old and future, will be very important. They provide a great opportunity to connect the Cathedral District with other areas via public transportation, but are pretty damaging to the streetscape below. So that's something that our proposal tries to keep in mind. The eastern edge, Hogan's Creek, is its own gateway. Once the Emerald Trail extends through and proper redevelopment utilizes it, as we will discuss in the individual projects, the river will terminate into the St. Johns River near the Shipyards project. Again, we'll get into that a little bit more. But it also is the gateway towards the sports complex district. The waterfront redevelopment also implements public and private water transportation that tries to recapture the St. Johns River connection that the city originally thrived on. And then the north edge is already wonderfully set by a park, though the addition of housing along the southern end of the park would help facilitate economic growth while aiding in diversity and additional pedestrians to enjoy the Cathedral District and draw in others through the bustling nature. A revitalized streetscape via mixed-use venues will help to shape the major axes and the places of interest. Let me get over here, sorry about this. With those outward connections set in place, we start to look inward. The Cathedral District was the intersection of the major axes, granted a perfect opportunity to reinvigorate the heart of the Cathedral District, right here. This is done by creating a prominent central plaza and park that interrupts the grid and to add visual importance. As the Tortogalis research indicates, parking lots offer great opportunity to inject density and liveliness. Let me get over to that just to show the impact of these parking lots. These developments would integrate garage parking into new buildings with other functions to help relieve the parking needs, but more importantly, the Cathedral District will enjoy the new business and venues that every streetscape can partake in. The reintegration of historic Kings Road within the key locations, such as Town Hall, Public Park, Museum, and then finally the shipyards that was previously mentioned. It'll, as said before, will define the Cathedral District's origin and place within Jacksonville. Dense residential zones on the north and south provide life to the filter of the exciting streets. Get over here. So these types of residential units will help activate the inner district. Heights of projects will help to facilitate a diverse skyline of traditional and contemporary architecture that helps to try and personalize and invigorate throughout the district. These new architectural elements will respect and enhance the wonderful culture of the Cathedral District. But there will also be opportunities for future architecture to revitalize and create new experiences. And these are just the physical connections. Connections between religious establishments should be integrated with the goings-on of the community. There are some outreach programs already in place, though there's an opportunity to connect with the Community Transition Center over here, the sheriff's building over here, and as well as the prison. This is to create a greater sense of social connection and thriving diversity within the district. Our proposal keeps these programs intact. Revitalization of architecture, sure, but we see a tremendous opportunity to help those that have been outside of society ease back in with the help of tremendously kind religious establishments. You can do this a variety of ways, one of which is having subsidized housing with policies that promote reintegration and then possibly moving on or staying within the area. Speaking of community, the master plan will help promote Market Street festivals with the plaza as a central focus, curated and possibly uncurated tours that focus on the Kings Road at these key locations discussed before, mental health facilities for the communities to use, and so on within the individual developments and amenities that we'll get into in just a moment. But the key takeaway is that these major proposal elements of the Cathedral District are needed to redefine and reconnect the district with itself and its surroundings, while revitalizing the district within itself to enhance what's already there and to promote future endeavors. This body of work so far has been about ideas. The individual projects we will be getting into are expressions of which the conceptual ideas discussed can be implemented.